Hello everybody and welcome to my Next Get a Life moment with myself, Lisa Davies. And today I am joined by the wonderful Rebecca Heald, who is a nutrition coach, or transformational nutrition coach, no less. Hi Rebecca, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Good, you're very welcome, very welcome. So for our viewers watching, who is Rebecca Heald?
Great question. So, yeah, I am a mother, a 39-year-old mother of two young boys primarily. And I am a nutrition coach. My business is something that I only started actually 3 years ago because it was my second career, let's say. I started my career off as a secondary school teacher.
Right, okay.
Always massively into health and fitness. So then started up, went back to retrain after the birth of my second son and set up my business and haven't really looked back. So that's where I am at in terms of my business. And honestly, right now, I'd say with the children, with the business, with everything that's going on, that's pretty much my life at the minute.
Yeah, well, it's unusual times for all of us, isn't it? Really is. So what was your journey to get you to that? And obviously you said you were a primary school teacher and you were always interested in fitness and nutrition, but what was that catalyst then? What was that journey that really said, right, I really want to do this. I want to do this for myself?
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, and I was secondary, not primary.
Secondary,
yeah.
sorry, my mistake.
Fine.
Oh, that's even more difficult. I can understand why you might have wanted to do something else. Teenagers, oh my word.
Yeah, I did get in a bit into primary because I taught languages, and I did do quite a bit in primary schools as well. So yeah.
So what languages do you speak then?
Well, I don't practice them as much as I should do now. It's like anything, if you don't keep up with it, then. But French and Italian is what my first degree was in, and then obviously went off to do my teacher education, worked in schools. I was a teacher. And then I went into school support services. So I had quite a long career in schools. But I would say, if I'm honest, when I was kind of late teens, early 20s, I really struggled with food. Had, various different issues and really battled with it throughout most of my 20s, I would say, up until probably having my first son. And then obviously having children then majorly made me realise that I needed to do something about it, but there was all sorts of other things going on in my life as well. So I went through a period of recovery, but alongside obviously having my children, being married, and also holding down a day job. So health and fitness has always played a huge part in my life through, for various different reasons and in various different formats throughout the years, let's say, because obviously in my 20s it was very much diet culture, obsessed with food, obsessed with exercise.
So how did that show up for you? I know you said you were in recovery. How did that show up for you? Was that quite extreme, or was it just a poor relationship with food? How did that show up for you?
Yeah, no, I ended up developing an eating disorder.
Right, okay.
So to be quite honest. So it was quite extreme, let's say. So then obviously, like I said, went through a period of recovery, and that was tough in itself. And I think, although I would say that I guess I know I went through a process and a journey, but I would say that it wasn't until I actually started my career in nutrition that I realised that I wanted to help people that have also battled and struggled with food, not to the same extent that I did. Yeah. But because when I first got into nutrition, I would say, because I did, I'm certified in evidence-based nutrition, so it was very heavily focused on that. So I probably was caught up in the very beginning in diet culture, in trying to help people achieve a certain weight through certain diet programs, etc. But then I soon realized that actually I needed to marry kind of my love for nutrition with where my values were. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So even in the short space of time that I've been working on my business, it has evolved.
Of course, yeah. And as businesses do,
yeah,
you know, we have a plan in the beginning, but it does evolve it almost organically, doesn't it? It can't help but evolve.
yeah, it does. It does. And I mean, it was a long time after, you know, kind of working through my issues and everything that I did decide to go into nutrition, because I needed to be in a place mentally and physically to be able to help other people. Does that make sense? So I didn't literally
Yes.
jump into it throughout recovery. I didn't jump into it as soon as I'd recovered. It took a long time for me to get from A to B, if that makes sense, because I want to serve my clients. I want to serve my clients in the best way that I can. And I can't do that if I'm not serving myself. Does that make sense?
Of course, you've got to fill your own cup first, haven't you?
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. So it's interesting you say that you started off, and you know, even for yourself, it was very much the diet culture, and even when you kind of moved into the realms of your own business, kind of getting drawn into that diet end of the scale, and with my therapist hat on. Even the word diet,
yeah.
You know, the subconscious, it's not helpful, is it? Because on one end of the scale, you kind of, you know, thinking, obsessed with what you're eating, and on the other end of the scale, by saying the word diet, the subconscious is saying eat or you're going to die. So yeah, it's a really interesting concept. It's really interesting concept. So how has that evolved then? And how do you now help people with both your own journey, your own experience, and moving away from that, as you put it, diet culture? So what form does it take now?
It's interesting that, though, because I just wanted to pick up on that as well, because different people interpret diet in different ways, don't they? And I know this isn't answering your question directly, but I will. But I think a lot of people will see a diet as just going to Weight Watchers, as doing a keto diet. But actually, if you have got an emotional relationship, if you eat for emotional, you know, if you've got an emotional way of eating, then you are stuck in diet mentality. So very often people will think that they're eating well, they're nourishing their bodies, but if they're still stuck in that mentality, they're not truly free. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
So yes, it's funny because obviously when I first went into my training to become a nutritionist, I very much knew what I did want to do. Okay, I wanted to help people rebuild their relationship with food, to rebuild their relationship with themselves. Okay, I wanted them to have a much better body image, and then that would then impact on their eating habits. But obviously, as you get into nutrition and you start looking at everybody around you, there is this massive, and I've spoken about this in some recent videos on my social media, about how everywhere you look, you have to be a certain size, you have to look a certain way, and it's so entrenched, and it was so entrenched in kind of all the people that I started to follow, all the fit pros, etc. So I kind of did get caught into that a little bit. I started to think, right, okay, I've got to get people on programs that take them from X to Y in the shortest amount of time, and you know, and I've got to almost give them, you know, things on a plate so that they can stick to it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
But actually, I very quickly, again, and as you can imagine, that didn't quite, although I felt that was the approach that I should be going down because that's what everybody else seemed to be doing, it didn't fit with me because of my own experiences.
Yes.
And also as well, you know, what I could see going on around me. So the way that I guess it has evolved is that now, whilst of course, you know, I always obviously do take an evidence-based approach. I'm not going to say that doesn't underpin what I do. It does.
Yes.
You know, that there's no two ways about that. But what I do is that I'm helping people now to see things for what they are, so that they can rebuild their relationship with food, and that they can begin to understand that, you know, being given a diet plan, being given a strict, you know, rigid regime to follow is only going to work for so long. And it's not, you know, this is why people are on and off diets all of the time, because they're not understanding what is informing their habits. And
it's just not sustainable, is it?
It's not. And the thought process, the thought changes have to occur before the behavior changes can occur. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And for it to be long term. So I guess that's the reason that I am a nutrition coach. I'm not a pure coach in the sense that a life coach would operate, because I do guide and I do educate and I do provide advice. But I'd say that what I do is I build, the reason that I call myself a nutrition coach is because I build a relationship with my clients, and that's where the magic happens. There's no magic pill, there's no magic solution. It's about a relationship and a process. And I get my clients to begin to understand how their map of the world has informed their eating behaviours, so that they can just look at it from a different perspective and see how diet culture has actually been damaging not just their relationship with food, but their relationship with life, their relationship with the people around them. So I guess that's how it has evolved. I'm all about, and at the root of it is always, how a person feels about themselves, their body image. But like I said, it's so entrenched in everything, in everywhere that we look, that, we have to work on that together, if that makes sense.
So what I'm hearing here, it's not about being a certain size. It's not about necessarily losing weight, unless somebody has health issues that mean that that's got to be the case. This is more about a shift in relationship with food, so that you can live a healthy, full life, have good nutritional benefit from the food that you're ingesting, enjoy having that relationship with food, and being comfortable in your own skin. Regardless of size, shape, or anything like that, being comfortable, healthy, well, and having an enjoyment and relationship with food that's healthy.
Exactly. I mean, to give you an example, and it is about, because anybody who is struggling with food, anyone who is confused, anyone who thinks about food all of the time, they've given food power. Diet culture gives food power. Living by rules, living by external rules, and not listening to your internal signals, it means that you've given food power. And what I'm trying to help clients do is develop a neutral approach to food. So food is, of course, it is something that they enjoy, because food is so much more than just what we eat. And we do not eat in a vacuum. We eat for emotional reasons, we eat for social reasons, for economical reasons. And, it's about taking a neutral stance with that, and taking food for what it is, rather than seeing it as this thing that needs to be avoided or controlled. And when you're talking about, obviously it's not about size, it's not about weight. What's really interesting is the shift. I mean, obviously the majority of the clients that come to me because what happens when you go on a diet? What happens when you're constantly in that cycle? Over a period of time, you just gain weight consistently over time, okay? Your weight just ends up going up and up and up and up. So what will happen is that a lot of my clients will come to me, and they're probably not in the body that they are supposed to be in. Okay, so working with me, they will find that they will reach their natural set point. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And
we all have that, don't we? We always all have kind of a natural equilibrium, don't we?
Yes. And that is where, and if you're constantly trying to battle or fight that, you're never going to be happy. You're always going to be constantly fighting a losing battle, because our bodies are very clever things. Okay. And they will fight to be where they are supposed to be. Okay, biologically, mentally. So, if you're constantly trying to achieve something that's not achievable, then you're constantly going to be unhappy. So it is about, and one of my clients recently, I've been working with her for a couple of months, and she said to me, you know what? She said, I'm happier now than I ever was when I was 2 stone lighter. Yeah. So it's about those light bulb moments, and, some of the feedback I've just been getting from clients this week, it's incredible. They're like, I'm unlearning behaviors. I'm so much more relaxed. I've got clients, because this doesn't just affect their diet, it affects their whole life. I've got one client who's just gone and had a complete career change, because she's listening to herself now. So she's realizing what wasn't keeping her happy and fulfilled.
Which is often when people emotionally eat and stuff down those emotional responses to stimulus outside them, which might be career, it might be relationship, it could be all of those things going on. And because they don't want to listen to it, or they don't want to respond to it or do anything about it, often food takes that emotional role, doesn't it?
That's
either overeating or over controlling, so you don't.
The
things that you can't control then start to be controlled through food.
It's interesting actually, because I mean, what I do is I help people to stop the fight with food and stop the fight with those thoughts. And it's interesting because emotional eating in itself is not a bad thing. It's not always a bad thing. We all eat to comfort or soothe ourselves at some point. The issue, of course, is when somebody has been dieting or over restricting, and then they find that it's not just the emotional eating, it's the fact that then they overeat when they emotionally eat. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because I think there is this whole thing out there, and I want that to, I don't want people to misunderstand when I talk about emotional eating, because like I said, sometimes emotional eating is a good thing. Sometimes if you've had a really crappy day and you want a little bit of chocolate to make yourself feel better, that's great. But it's about, and I had this conversation with my client the other day, she was like, well, I can't have a chocolate bar in my house because I would eat it all. And I said, what's it going to feel like when you can have a family-sized bar of chocolate in your fridge and it could be there for a week and you just have a bit when you want? And she was like, well, that'll never happen. I said, that will happen. That is where we're going to go. That is where we're going to get you. Does that make sense? Because at the end of the day, think about it. Birthday cake has no nutritional value. It's got no purpose in our lives, so to speak. Okay. But we all enjoy it from time to time.
It's joyful. It's part of a celebration of something wonderful, isn't it? So, if we can't enjoy a bit of birthday cake when it's somebody's birthday.
And this is what I mean. Yeah. And this is exactly what I mean by emotional eating has its place.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It's part of the joy of a birthday, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's what's really upsetting is when people feel that they can't. The Dr. Michael Mosley program. Anyway, we won't go there. But when people aren't allowing themselves to have that cake because of a diet that they're on, it just breaks my heart.
Yeah. It's about, like you say, it's about neutralizing the power that it has, and it becomes a much more nutritious, fulfilling, lovely part of your life, rather than something that is creating difficult emotions and feelings, isn't it? So talk to me about who is your typical client then, or do you have a typical client?
Well, yeah. I am working. The majority of my clients they're business owners. I'm working very much with business people, and that's because what I'm finding is that they often are the people that are so ambitious in life, like myself, and realize that they could go much further, be much more productive if they could just, develop a much better relationship with food and their bodies. And that's why a lot of my clients like to remain anonymous, if I'm honest, because they don't want people to know what it is that they're going through, because obviously on the outside, they are successful, they are confident, they are, they've got it covered. Okay. But, very often, on the inside, personally, they are struggling. They've got this internal battle with food. They've got this internal battle with their bodies. They've got this internal battle of what to wear every day. So yeah, the majority, they're not all of my clients are, but the majority of my clients, they are business owners that want to just, get their life back, and not just because they know that they're going to be more productive and obviously take their businesses further. It's also about that life balance, because a lot of them, again, they have put themselves to the bottom of the pile because they've been working and focusing so much on their businesses. So now they want a bit of they want their life back. They want to have time with their family and not constantly be feeling guilty or ashamed about what it is that they're eating.
And is it men and women, or whole range, mix? Yeah,
men and women. I also, as well, have done some work with teenagers and parents as well. So yeah, it's quite. I would say majority of my work is with women, but no, more and more men. I'm getting more inquiries from men as well, and sometimes it takes a different approach with men, because men don't always have the same kind of relationship with food that women do. So it does. The thing is when it comes to, being in the body that is right for you, etc. I'm not saying that for somebody that doesn't have the issues with food, the battle with the relationship with food that we've discussed, they're the kind of person that should not be going on yet another diet. They are the kind of person that should not be thinking about cutting back, counting calories, because the evidence shows that anybody who has struggled with losing weight, regaining weight, struggled with that restriction and binge cycle, etc., going on yet another diet isn't going to help them. Okay. So it's about looking at a more sustainable approach, which is exactly what my coaching program does. But if you've got somebody that has never had that problem and just, actually is just certain things have happened, maybe they've got themselves into a bad rut, life has happened in a different way than what they expected, then, that might warrant a different approach. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So with that in mind, actually, because that leads me to think of, obviously we've had lockdown. Yes. I like to call it staying at home. I think it's a much more positive way of phrasing it. Yeah, staying at home. We've had this period of staying at home, and this kind of, we're in betwixt and between of staying at home at the moment. May well be staying at home a little bit more. Has that had an impact on people's? I mean, we know from the news, and as a therapist, we know that has a huge impact on people's mental well-being. That must have had a knock-on effect to people's eating habits, how they're feeling about the food, or, even people maybe have found that they've been made redundant, or they've been furloughed, or finances have been more difficult, which might affect how they are feeding themselves and their family. Has that come up for you in your work in terms of the effects of staying at home?
Yes, definitely. And I would say the people that I spoke to, like obviously my clients that are, are fighting the food, have got that battle, that internal battle that is going on, it has exasperated it, I think, through lockdown. But also as well, what we've got to understand is that, people, a lot of people have gained a few pounds over lockdown, and it's okay, because a lot of people will have been doing more of what we just said, more of that emotional eating, because it's been stressful, it's been really, really difficult. And yes, it has an impact. I mean, I just spoke just before I came on here about how it's even impacted on children, because children are at home, they're wanting to snack more, and that's absolutely okay. What worries me, Lisa, is the messages that are going out there now. Lockdown belly, severe calorie restrictive diets that are suddenly being pushed down people's necks. What worries me is that can then end up making people feel ashamed for gaining weight over lockdown. People that probably before lockdown had quite a normal relationship with food are probably maybe now feeling that lockdown has led to them gaining weight and developing maybe a poor. What worries me is the messages that are going around now could spark people to have more of a poor relationship with food if they're feeling guilty and ashamed for what has gone on. Because this is the other thing that is very ingrained within our culture and society, is that there's this personal responsibility very often that is attached to weight gain and being in a bigger body, when actually it's very often it's our societal structures, it's even our healthcare system, it's our fashion industry. It's so ingrained within all of that, and people need to realize and understand and recognize how that's all been working against them, so that they can be kinder to themselves and put the strategies in place to move forward. Because fundamentally, Lisa, it all comes down to self-compassion. It comes down to kindness. It comes down to, because the clients that I'm working with, they feel like constant failures because they haven't been able to stick to a certain diet, etc. When they're not. It's, they're absolutely not.
And as we said earlier on in the conversation, everybody has a set point. I listened to a TED talk actually at Lincoln Brayford Pool when I was running a TEDx workshop, and there was a lovely girl there called Zoe who did a talk, who had an eating disorder, and she was talking about this set point. That, I don't know, is that the right term for it? That everybody has a set point, and so some people are designed to be in a larger body. Some people are designed to be in a straight up and straight down. Some are designed to be curvy. Some are designed to be pear-shaped. Everybody's got a set point that is natural for their body. And so, again, this isn't talked about. I mean, that set point was probably one of the first times that anybody heard anybody talk about it, when I listened to that TED talk. And she said, nobody knows, nobody kind of talks about this. Like you're saying, it's all in the press. It's got to be a certain way. Yeah. And actually, that's not healthy or natural for, the vast majority of the population.
I'm sorry, but we live in a very fat phobic society. And, you know, and people do need to understand. And I've posted about this before, saying that even if you and I ate exactly the same thing day in, day out, we would still have different bodies.
Yeah.
It's the same with children. You know, all children are in a different body. Some children will be in a bigger body, and some children will be in a bigger body for a certain amount of time, and then it will regulate. So I've got this issue with weighing children at school. Anyway, that's another topic. But yeah, we all do have a set point. The thing is, which is interesting as well, is that what tends to happen is people that constantly yo-yo, people that constantly weight cycle. So if you constantly lose weight and gain weight, the interesting thing is that your set point can increase. Okay. So dieting does you an injustice in the long run, because all that's going to happen is that body that is right for you is going to kind of, you know, the set point is going to increase if you constantly lose and gain weight. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Your set point is kind of almost regulated by kind of the biggest that you've ever been, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Interesting.
It is fascinating. It is absolutely fascinating. So the more that somebody diets, the more damage that they are doing effectively in the long run, not just physically, but psychologically.
Yeah. So fundamentally, it's not about losing weight necessarily. It is about being comfortable in your own skin, being healthy, you know, being more at your set point, more as your body is naturally meant to be. And also it's a lot about the mindset. It's a lot about the mental side and the emotional side of the relationship, rather than, this dreadful word of diet. And also making sure that we're getting a balanced nutrition, you know, for our immune systems and things like that, you know. I mean, we haven't really even got onto that as such. You know, there are certain vitamins, minerals and stuff that we need from our food to stay healthy and well, isn't there?
Absolutely. And, you know, again, people that are stuck in the diet mentality or in the diet, you know, they end up not giving themselves everything that their body needs. I mean, I had a lovely message today from a previous client who I finished working with about a year ago, and she just said, I just want to let you know how well I'm doing, and how, you know, I've had a really most stressful time of my life, but my relationship with food is still as it was when we finished working together. And I think she'd even managed to lose more weight. You know, she's lost weight. My clients are losing weight because they were overeating when they came to me.
Yes.
Does that make sense? If they're overeating when they come to me, then they are going to lose weight when they work with me, you know, but it's not, that isn't the focus, because when you make weight the focus, you're on another diet.
Exactly.
You're on another diet, and you are, again, overly concerned with body image, which I'm trying to move, or not overly concerned with body image, if you're on another diet, you've got a negative body image, let's say, and I'm helping clients to develop that positive body image, which, you know, it never stands still. But she just said to me that obviously when she was in that whole cycle, she said, I was eating, you know, much more comfort food, much more, you know, less nutritious food. Whereas now, she said, you know, I can see how, you know, the good food makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And I say good, I shouldn't say good, because I hate that dichotomy of good, bad, healthy, unhealthy. We should never think about it like that. I talk to my boys about it, and I say there are just foods that have more nutritional value than others, but all food is okay.
All food's okay. So more nutritional food rather than that doesn't have much nutritious content.
There are foods that will give you more energy. There are foods that will give you, you know, more nutritional value, and there are foods that will, you know, give you not as much value, but they may give you some pleasure, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah. So what's next for you then, Rebecca? What's your aspirations? What's coming next in your world?
Obviously, at the minute, I am working on this 6-month program, because I'd say I only really kind of drilled down and honed in on the 9 steps that it involves, because we've spoken about how it is that I work, but I have got a program that I take clients through. So it works through the 9 steps that are necessary in order to move from having that very poor, controlling, you know, relationship with foods to being free, okay, to being able to eat a biscuit without eating the whole packet, okay. So it's a 9-step program, and so I've been working on that. I've been working on, obviously that's all in place now, but I'm working on obviously promoting that and trying to encourage more clients to get on that, really. I'm also working on, which I'll be doing soon, I'm doing a video training series that will obviously hopefully promote that and give people a little bit more of an insight of what it is that I do. I'm also been working on obviously trying, because obviously this is a second career for me. I'm not coming at this with a big, you know, network of people that are like-minded. So obviously networking, talking to people like you is a big part of what I'm also doing at the moment. And obviously I want to do more talks. I want to get into businesses and kind of spread the word that you don't need to be going on all these, you know, Fitspo challenges. It's about making the changes in what's the word, in a business environment, I guess, that will support what it is that I've been talking to you about.
Yeah.
And I have got to say that another thing that's always in the background for me at the minute, and it does come through in some of my posts, is children. You know, I've got a massive interest in helping children or helping parents to make sure that they are encouraging their children to grow up with a healthy relationship with food, because that will make me redundant. You know, if we're bringing up our children to have a healthy relationship with food, then, you know, I'm not going to have to work with women and men in their 40s that are struggling with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So obviously, but you know, a lot of my clients are parents, so I do support them with how they feed their children. So obviously I get in that way, but obviously I want to be preventative fundamentally.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as with all of my guests, I have that final question for you. If you were to share with our audience your top tip for life, what would it be?
Yes, well, I haven't really overthought this one, because I thought I'm just going to see what kind of comes up. But I do think that my top tip, which I always come back to, is that you need to invest in yourself. Okay, if you do not invest in yourself, then you cannot expect the universe to give you everything that you deserve. And I don't mean invest in yourself necessarily financially. I mean invest yourself in terms of looking after yourself, eating well, you know, looking after, you know, exercising, developing your skills, you know, going on that free workshop. You know, setting yourself goals and challenges, making sure that you're, you know, giving yourself family time. Even investing in yourself is creating a bucket list and then sticking to it. Does that make sense? And of course it can be also as well, I'm not going to say, you know, I'm not going to lie, but also investing in a coach. You know, I mean, it's the best thing I ever did. And obviously it's the best thing that my clients have done. You invest in a coach and you're investing in a partner that is going to help you become the best version of you.
Yeah. I love that. So invest in yourself. It's been a pleasure learning a little bit more about your work and having a discussion and a debate today about food, glorious food. Thanks so much, Rebecca.
No, thank you. Thank you very much for having me, Lisa. It's been great.